What's up, everyone? We are here talking about Della Maddalena versus Carlos Prates, which is going down this Saturday in Perth, Australia, and is an absolute fantastic card from top to bottom. A lot of Aussie casuals were probably loving this card. I actually think it's really good. Like I said, I'm really excited for it, especially the main event. Without further ado, let's get right into this. So the first fight on the card that I see is Cody Steele versus Donmar Fan. So Donmar Fan, he's coming off a win against someone that he fought on the Volk versus Diego Lopez card. And I'll be real, I didn't watch that one. But I do know that there was some controversy regarding that decision for Donmar Fan, that people thought that he actually lost it. Now, Cody Steele, on the other hand, coming off a loss against Rongju back in, UFC 313, I believe. It was Sean Strickland versus Dracus du Plessis. That was also, I think, in Sydney, Australia, where he looked pretty good. But, just the boxing was the weak point. Rongju was kind of doing his best Max Holloway impression and honestly just kind of pieced up Cody Steele. But it had really good moments. I think it was a very competitive fight. And since then, it was Cody Steele's first loss in the UFC and his professional MMA career. While Donmar Pham just kind of looks a little underwhelming. Like I said, he kind of had an underwhelming performance on the Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez card on UFC 325. So there is that kind of merit. There is kind of that factor where Cody Steele cut him off a loss, but he's taking a lot of time off. He's taking over a year off, and I think he's going to come in much more improved and have a better boxing just skill set. And I think he's going to knock out Donmar Fan kind of quick in this one, if I'm keeping it real, man. I think this is going to be a quick one. I think Cody Steele's really going to come back in a big way and just show that he is overall improved his skill set by a pretty big margin. So I'm going to go with Cody Steele to get a finish over Donmar Fan. Let's say, what are we feeling? I would say the second round. I think it's going to be quick, but I don't think it's going to be one round quick. So Cody Steele's a minus 185 favorite, while Donmar Fan is a plus 155. I'd side with Steele all the way. That's probably a pretty good prospect, or even a good parlay pick to put Steele in your betting sheet. So I got Cody Steele to win this via KO in the second round. Moving on. Jonathan Mikalev versus Thembo Gorimbo. Thembo Gorimbo, man. Coming off, I think, a 2-fight losing streak. I believe he got submitted by Vicente Luque, and I think he lost a fight recently via decision. I could be wrong, but he was on a good trajectory. Looked pretty good in the UFC. But then up against these guys who just have better wrestling, he's just really struggled. And for someone like Jonathan Mikalev, my bad, he has that grappling advantage. I think a really solid grappling advantage. I mean, look what he did at Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott was kind of piecing him up on the feet, but then once Jonathan was able to get him down, and he just submitted him immediately. And I think that's very impressive to do that to someone like Tim Elliott. Like I said, he was having some issues, in the striking. Gorimbo could have some advantages on the feet and maybe have some moments. I think overall, once it hits the ground, Mikalev is just going to be way too sticky, way too fast, and is going to sink up a rear naked choke very quick in this. And I think he's going to get a submission win. I think, and let's say the first round, man. Let's say the first round. Let's go with that one. Yeah, let's keep it simple. I got Jonathan Mikalev to win this one. He's currently a minus 335. My bad. Holy crap, I didn't realize he was that heavy of a favorite. While Gorimbo is a plus 270 underdog. So a pretty sizable, discrepancy between the odds. 3-1 favorite for Mikalev. That's kind of insane to me, but I do believe in his grappling, and I do think he has a pretty massive advantage when it comes to that. So I'm going to go with Mikolev to get this submission win over Thembo Gorimbo in the first round. Moving on, Wes Schultz versus Ben Johnston. I'm going to keep it real. I don't know anything about these guys. I do not know. Apparently, I think Wes Schultz was the guy that was in the UFC but got cut. I actually have no idea. Flip a coin. I don't care about this one whatsoever. Let's go with Wes Schultz by boring decision. I don't know, man. I for real have never heard of these guys, and most of the time that's usually not the case. Usually I can have like some sort of memory when it comes to fighters, even if I don't really know them. But this one, no clue. Nothing rings a bell. Let's just move on. Who really cares, honestly? Maybe that's like fight of the night. You know, I'm just dissing on it. It's gonna be fight of the night. If you care about the odds, Wes Schultz is a plus 150 underdog. There you go. There's an underdog pick. Don't put that on your parlay at all. And Ben Johnston is a minus 180. So Wes Schultz by decision. I'm very confident in that one. Vince Morales versus Colby Thickness. So I actually watched a couple fights of Vince Morales, and he has pretty good boxing. You know, pretty good striking overall. Maybe not boxing, just kind of keep it at the striking level. And he doesn't have really good power, but he has good striking, has good, you know, scrambability, if that's a word, ability to kind of like get out of bad positions on the ground. While Colby Thickness, on the other hand, doesn't really have the best striking. He has that kind of like sloppy, poor man's Volkanovski striking, where he's trying to do his best impression of it, but it doesn't look good. I would imagine Colby would want to get this down to the ground. He has really good wrestling, really good just like hold you down grappling. Really no submission threat. I don't think is going to be there for him. But if I'm keeping it real, this is a very tough fight for Thickness. I do believe he'll get the victory, but Vince Morales is no slouch. So Vince Morales is actually coming off a 3-fight losing streak, losing against Elijah Smith, Taylor Lapoulis, I don't know who that is, but we'll run with it, and then Raul Rosas Jr. So pretty decent levels of competition. I would argue some pretty good grapplers. I know Elijah Smith is more of a striker, I'd say, but a pretty well-rounded fighter. And Colby Thickness, I think he has that skill set that's comparable to someone like Elijah Smith. Maybe not to the potential of Elijah Smith, but I think still a good, solid base to defeat someone like Vince Morales. So the odds have it as Colby as actually a decent favorite, minus 170, while Vince Morales is a slight underdog at plus 140. So I don't know. This one's a little tricky, but I do think Colby could do it. And I don't know. Like, if you're not getting knocked out by Alexandra Topuria, I don't think you're going to get knocked out by Vince Morales. So even if he does struggle in the striking, I think he can get the takedowns and kind of just cruise his way to a decision. So I'm going to go with Colby Thickness to win via decision over Vince Morales. Let's say 29-28 decision over Vince Morales. So final pick, Colby Thickness by decision. Moving up to the card, we got Jacob Malkoun versus Gerald Meerschaert. Bro. Oh, man. Gerald Meerschaert. I'm sorry. I like him. I've always kind of liked him, respected him. But when it comes to someone like Jacob Malkoun, I feel like he's maybe not that great, but he's good enough to beat someone like GM3. I don't know. It's a part of me was looking at this fight and was like, what if GM3 wins? Because this is a fight that GM3 could absolutely win. Jacob Malkoun, not this like super heavy puncher, good boxing, but nothing like crazy power. And when you look at like Gerald Meerschaert and like how he's kind of losing these fights is like, it's typically by someone who just has more power. I think he did lose a decision 2 fights ago, but most of the time he just gets slimed out and then, that's it. So could GM3 craft his way to a decision or a submission win? I think so, but I think Jacob Malkoun is just the better. I shouldn't say better. I would say just more in his prime than GM3. GM3 is just on his way out, and I think like a 4-fight losing streak, I believe. So not a good look, and I think Jacob Malkoun can, stuff the takedowns if GM3 tries to do it, and maybe get a KO. Yeah, I'm going to go with KO. GM3, I know I just said all that stuff about GM3, but I just don't think he's the same fighter as he once was, and same with the chin. So I'm going to go with Jacob Malkoun to get a finish over GM3. I'm gonna say the second round. I think he's gonna be kind of struggling at first, but then once he kind of finds that there's really no threat coming from GM3, he's just gonna kind of unleash his boxing and win via TKO in the second round. So there you have it. Jacob Malkoun, this is insane. He's a -1,000 favorite, while GM3 is a +625. If you're feeling GM3, man, put like $10 down. You'll win $62 if GM3 wins. I mean, I don't mind that, honestly. But taking Jacob Malkoun as a -1,000, I don't agree with that whatsoever. Avoid this fight at all costs. If you are going to side with someone, go with GM3. But overall, don't do anything. But I got Jacob Malkoun to win via TKO in the second round. Let's go for that. Next up, headlining the prelims. Or no, not headlining the prelims. Never mind, I'm having my bout order confused. It's Junior Tafa versus Kevin Christian. Now, Junior Tafa, bro. What does he do well in? He does well in striking. What does Kevin Christian do well? A little bit of this, a little bit of that, I guess. I think he's decent with striking, but now, you may laugh at me, but I'm going to pick Junior Tafa to win this fight. I think this is a stylistic matchup that he should absolutely win, where he has the better striking, he has piss poor takedown defense, but someone like Kevin Christian, who's not going to have the same level of striking, is just going to get pieced up. And honestly, I think Junior Tafa could find a finish in the first round against Kevin Christian. Call me crazy. Call me insane if you want. But I think Junior Tafa is looked at as just such a one-dimensional fighter. And same with just the Tafa brothers in general. It's like striking or nothing. That's all they have. And he rocked Billy Alicana. I think he might have even dropped Billy Alicana. And I think if you're doing that to him, I think you're going to do that to someone like Kevin Christian, who I don't rate very highly whatsoever. So I'm actually going to pick Junior Tafa to get this fight, or win this fight via TKO in the first round. I may sound absolutely crazy, but he actually is he's the favorite. He's a -175 favorite, while Kevin Christian is a +145. So, man, I'm going with Tafa via TKO in the first round. Moving up. This is headlining the prelims. Now I remember Cam Rousen versus Robert Brychek. This is a good fight. I liked Robert Brychek in his last fight. I believe he fought Brad Tavares. I could be wrong on that one, but I think that was in UFC Paris, I think. But Cam Rousen, man, has looked really good. He's looked really good. I think he's coming out of that City Kickboxing gym. And he emulates a lot of that kind of style. And I think with Brychek, he has decent power and decent striking. But I think Cam Rousen, just being the bigger guy and the longer guy, I think he's just going to kind of tag up Brychek at range. And I don't know, maybe find a KO. But I think overall, I don't know. I think Cam Rousen has good power, but I don't think he has like some crazy knockout power. So I'm a little on the edge of where he's going to win, but I am siding with Cam Rousen pretty heavily on this one, honestly. He's just really good in his last couple fights. So I'm going to go with Cam Rousen to find maybe a TKO. But I think it's going to be kind of a sloppy hard fought fight where it goes all 3 rounds and he wins via decision. Or maybe Brajček actually shaves off a round. But yeah, I'm going with Cam Rowson to win via decision. He's a minus 250 favorite, while Brajček is a plus 205. I would be confident with putting Cam Rowson on a parlay. Maybe do Cam Rowson and what's his name, Cody Steele on a parlay. That could be pretty solid. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Cam Rowson via decision to win over Robert Brajček. Next up, the greatest to ever do it, the pinnacle of fitness and health. Tai Tuivasa takes on Louis Sutherland on short notice. Now, both these guys are on a losing streak. I'm pretty sure Louis is 0-2 in the UFC, and Tai is on no, I was gonna say 6, but I think he's on a 5-fight losing streak. I don't want to disrespect him that much. Anyways, this is a tough fight because this is the make or break for Tai. Like, the first original fight that was announced for him was a complete layup. And I honestly was, happy for Tai because it's like, hell yeah, get a win in Perth, Australia, do a shoey, and sail off to the sunset. It's like, that's awesome. But Louis is actually a tough opponent. He hasn't looked that great in his previous 2 fights, getting submitted and then getting TKO'd. But with Tai, man, it's so hard to pick him. It's so hard. Because what do you look at and you're like, oh, he's going to win by this? Is he going to win by decision? Where he just... I don't know. I actually don't know. This one is absolutely a coin flip. I have no idea who will win this. I'm kind of leaning towards Sutherland to win via decision. Because Ty's looked so bad in his last fight. And that's a fight he could have won against Taliesin Teixeira. It was so upsetting to watch. I picked Taliesin Teixeira to beat him, but man, Tai could have beat him. It was there for him to take it, and he just didn't. But his cardio blows. Man. I'm going to feel bad if I get this one wrong. But I'm going to pick Louis Sutherland to beat Tai Tuivasa via decision, setting him on a 6-fight losing streak, and Louis Sutherland getting his first victory in the UFC. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to let you down, but I gotta keep it real. I think that's just, I don't know. I think it's just gonna be a Louis Sutherland win, but I do think this could be competitive. Like, throughout 3 rounds, I could see some competitive moments. But I think Louis Sutherland will beat Tai Tuivasa. And yeah, not a good look. I'm sorry, Tai. We are Tai Tuivasa at the end of the day. Louis Sutherland as a slight underdog at plus 140, my mistake. And Tai at a minus 170. But I got Louis Sutherland to win via decision over Tai. Let's move on before I start crying. Shamil Gaziev versus Brando Pericic. Shamil, the GOAT, good fighter, versus Pericic, who just knocked out Louis Sutherland. Kind of ironic. I think it's one pretty plain and simple. Pericic is just going to be the faster fighter, more athletic, and I think he's going to knock out Shamil Gaziev in the first round very quick. I'm pretty confident in this one, honestly. I think Pericic, the way he kind of just knocked out Sutherland without no respect, is a good look, honestly. But on the other side of the coin, Shamil Gaziev could counter him. But we saw with Waldo Cortez Acosta, even stepping in short notice, once he kind of stunned Gaziev and just made him shell up, it was just picking, it was just Waldo's fight to win. And I think with someone like Pericic, who's just going to be faster and more athletic, he's going to get Gaziev out of there so damn quick. and he's going to get a pretty easy KO victory over Gaziev. Pretty plain and simple, honestly. I don't think I need to go into this one anymore. Pericic is actually a minus 145. A very small favorite overall. And Gaziev is a plus 120. So I got Pericic to win this fight via KO. The odds make me differ that, but I'm going to stick with my confidence and go with Pericic. I'm not going to switch up. Next up, great fight as a featured fight. Tim Elliott versus Steve Erceg. Tim Elliott coming off a win against Kai Asakura at UFC 319. I actually saw that one where Tim Elliott stole my money and left me with nothing. And Steve Erceg coming off a win against Ode Osborne where he had a lot of trouble, I think in the first round, I believe, but eventually worked in his grappling, got the takedowns, and won a decision. Where do I see this fight playing out? I think this is going to predominantly be on the ground, where Steve Erceg kind of sets up his takedowns with the striking. Tim Elliott can be kind of a weasel and make it a little bit awkward on the feet, but I think overall Steve Erceg's a very good fighter. I think his, 3-fight losing streak, losing to Alexander Pantoja, getting fluked by Kai Kara-France, and then losing a decision against Brandon Moreno. I think those all kind of show the levels in the flyweight division, and I think Steve Erceg is still a very top level flyweight, where he could maybe fight for the belt in the future. I think in this fight, he's going to have a pretty big advantage when it comes to the grappling. I think once this hits the ground, because we've seen Tim Elliott in the past struggle when someone else can kind of just dominate him on the ground. I think when it hits the ground, where Steve Erceg just mixes in his boxing, Steve Erceg is going to find a submission over Tim Elliott. I think maybe the second or third round. I think this might play out a little slow and maybe kind of a little awkward at first, just because, like I said, Tim Elliott's kind of strange in the feet. But I think overall, once it does hit the ground, it's game over. It's wraps. And for Erceg, it's going to be a submission win. So I'm going to go with Erceg to win over Tim Elliott via submission. He's a minus 400 favorite. Holy crap, that's actually crazy. And Tim Elliott's a plus 300. I would be cautious of this fight. I would not. That's way too wide of odds. I would not agree with that whatsoever, but I still have Erceg to win via submission. Don't do anything with that. That is too wide. Avoid. Avoid. This one, on the other hand, Quillan Salkild versus Beneil Dariush, I'm very confident in. I'll cut right to the chase. Beneil Dariush could have some success. We've seen him against someone like Renato Moicano be able to kind of weather an early storm, work on the submission, or work on the takedowns, work on the grappling, do kind of a little better in the striking, and win a decision. But you're going against Quillan Salkild, who has looked incredible, who's a young, up-and-coming prospect, who's fast on the feet, has really good ground game. I don't know. I don't know how Beneil could win this, unless he just stinks up a decision. But I just don't think it's going to come to that. I think Quillan Salkild is just going to chin Beneil Dariush so quick. Maybe at first, but kind of like a respect moment where it's like, man, I respect you for getting chinned by everybody. But no shame in Beneil, man. I like Beneil. He's a top level guy. But man, Quillan is just he's gonna smoke him. I think it's very simple. I think this is one of those fights where this is so simple that it's a little cautious. But I think this one is just written in stone, where Beneil got knocked out in his last fight against Benoit Saint-Denis by, a one shot? And Quillan Salkild has looked super impressive. Super, super good. Finishing his last 3 of 4 opponents in the UFC. Even the GOAT, what's his name? Jubilee, the Indian fighter. So yeah, there you have it. Quillan Salkild by KO in the first round. Like I said, I'm pretty confident in this one. He is a pretty heavy favorite, I think, understandably. He's a minus 440, while Beneil is a plus 335. So I think overall, Quillen Salkill will win this fight pretty easily via TKO, no matter the round. I think it's inevitable. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about this one, but it's the main event, Jack Della Maddalena versus Carlos Prates. I do have a full kind of breakdown on this on my YouTube channel. If you haven't watched that already, go give it a like and give it a view. But I go more in depth with Carlos Prates versus Jack Della Maddalena, which I got to keep it real. I am terrified for Jack. I am so scared for Jack in this fight because something I really didn't mention in my breakdown was the fact that in the Kevin Holland fight that Jack had, Holland did have some success with laying like straight rights, on Jack. And it was more of like a counter striking. And I actually just watched that fight because I was watching a prediction video and they talked about that same point. And I was like, that's interesting. I may want to rewatch that just to kind of get a better idea of where the moments are where he does get tagged by that straight right. Because that's what Carlos Prates wants. He wants a straight left right down the middle and just chin your lights out and just, put you out cold. That's Prates' game plan, For Jack, I think in that fight against Kevin Holland, now this is just me speculating, in those moments where he was actually getting clipped, I think it was more of a sloppy, just kind of, I don't know, he was more getting like too comfortable with himself because Kevin Holland's a very talkative guy and he was kind of like having fun in that fight, which you shouldn't be doing in a UFC fight, which Jack is usually a pretty serious guy, but against Kevin Holland, he's a loudmouth for sure. I think it's what Dana White called him. And I think in that fight where he was getting clipped a little bit, he was kind of letting his guard down. So obviously that is there for Prates. Any type of defensive flaws that Jack Della Maddalena might have, those moments of defensive flaws, Prates could capitalize on. We saw him put out someone like Leon Edwards. We saw him put out someone like Jeff Neal, KOing people that have never been KO'd before. The only difference is Jack Della Maddalena has such good defense. So much to the point that I am scared that those knees from Prates are going to hit him in the midsection and maybe hinder Jack's performance or even put him down. So there is factors that lean towards Prates. And in some ways, like I said, I'm terrified in this fight. Because I do think Prates has really incredible power. Like I have talked about this before where I think that he is the hardest hitter, like pound per pound, probably the hardest hitter. Maybe next to like Ilya, because Ilya has wicked power too. But Prates has weird power, But like I said, JDM, really good defense, really good combinations, really good boxing technique. And we've seen Prates struggle with that kind of stuff in the past, with Ian Gary, with Jeff Neal. And you could say like, oh, Jeff Neal, he got knocked out eventually. But the thing is, JDM has such better just footwork and defense and head movement than Jeff Neal that I feel like in some ways that fight is not comparable just because JDM won't be a stationary target while Jeff Neal was. Jeff Neal, moved his head a little bit, but overall not the same technique and skill of Jack. And I think when you have a moving target like that who just keeps his head off the center line, does micro adjustments, and has shown to have some success against rangy fighters like Randy Brown and Kevin Holland, I think when you look at those factors, a big lean should be put towards JDM. But like I said, the Prates KO is always lingering overhead. So I'm not going to talk about this one anymore because like I said, I have a video on my YouTube channel if you guys want to go check it out. Breaking down this one a little bit more. But I'm going to pick JDM to win this fight, actually by TKO in the 3rd round. Now JDM predicted a 5th round KO. I don't know if it's going to take that long. I think JDM is underestimating himself in this case, or maybe making it so Prates is underestimating him. But I think JDM's body work, his head movements, his accuracy with his strikes, I think he's going to clip Prates, and I think Prates is going to feel the punches of Jack and kind of make him, I'm not going to say crumble, but I think Jack will actually put him out via TKO up against the fence. Or maybe as Prates is kind of like skirting back, just rip body shots up to the head and put Prates out, and find some hammer fists and get a TKO victory in round 3. That is my dream. I'm going to be, dude, I don't even want to watch this in some ways because my heart's going to be thumping. Like I can't take this. I can't do it. Watching Yuri get knocked out and now this, like, I don't want to feel that again. It was awful enough. So I'm going to pick Jack to win via TKO. I could see him win, via decision as well. Yeah, if you're picking Prates, I completely understand. I completely get it. Like I said, this is a very close fight. Yeah, minus 110, minus 110. They are dead even odds. This is gonna be a sick fight. Let me know how it goes. I'm kidding. I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it, even if it's Jack laying flat on the canvas. I really hope not. At least hope it's a good fight. With Jack winning. Anyways, that's going to do it for my predictions for UFC Perth, Jack Della Maddalena versus Prates. Hopefully I didn't put it too long. If you guys are sticking around to the end of this video, I do want to give you a heads up. I will be going to a job for about 6 months, actually, here soon. So I got to figure out how I'm going to edit videos. This video may come out kind of late, close to the actual fight day. I'm going to try to get it out sooner than later, but the way I see it now, I got to figure out how I'm going to edit videos and also record them. So things may change here in the next couple videos, but I'm going to try to stay consistent. I'm going to try to, upload every week. Things have just been kind of weird just because I am going to be going to that job. It's not a permanent gig. It's just, a contract. So, yeah, I'll try my best to get videos out. I really do appreciate all the support, especially in the last video, the one I did in the breakdown for Jack and Prates. That's up to 100 views. I think it's awesome. I really appreciate everybody supporting me. And also, if you could, please click that subscribe button. It would help out quite tremendously. And I hope to see you guys in my next video. Stay tuned. There's more on the way. And thank you very much. Have a good one.